Question 1. Analysis of the potential consequences of a new Avaya Scopia solution deployment on existing network infrastructure, security protocols, and user access controls within a financial services organization. What is the most critical factor to consider during the impact assessment phase to ensure regulatory compliance and operational integrity? Option A. Prioritizing the speed of deployment to leverage new features as quickly as possible, with post-implementation adjustments for any unforeseen issues. Option B. Thoroughly evaluating the solution's compatibility with existing security policies and data privacy regulations, and identifying any potential conflicts or new vulnerabilities introduced. Option C. Focusing solely on the technical performance metrics of the Avaya Scopia solution, such as call quality and bandwidth utilization, without deep consideration for security implications. Option D. Relying exclusively on the vendor's standard implementation guide, without conducting an independent assessment of the organization's unique network configuration and security posture. Correct answer is B. Thoroughly evaluating the solution's compatibility with existing security policies and data privacy regulations, and identifying any potential conflicts or new vulnerabilities introduced. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing a new Avaya Scopia solution within an organization, especially one that handles sensitive data or operates in a regulated industry, presents a significant challenge. The primary difficulty lies in ensuring that the implementation process, including any necessary upgrades or changes to existing infrastructure, does not negatively impact the availability, integrity, or confidentiality of critical business operations and data. This requires a thorough understanding of the existing environment, potential interdependencies, and the specific requirements of the new solution. A failure to conduct a proper impact assessment can lead to service disruptions, data breaches, compliance violations, and significant financial losses. Careful judgment is required to balance the benefits of the new technology with the risks to ongoing operations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive impact assessment that considers all facets of the Avaya Scopia solution's integration. This includes evaluating its effect on network infrastructure, existing communication platforms, security protocols, user access controls, and data storage. It necessitates identifying potential conflicts, performance bottlenecks, and security vulnerabilities that could arise. Furthermore, it requires engaging with all relevant stakeholders, including IT operations, security teams, compliance officers, and end users, to gather input and validate findings. This proactive approach ensures that potential issues are identified and mitigated before deployment, aligning with best practices for IT service management and risk management. From a regulatory perspective, this aligns with principles of due diligence and risk mitigation, ensuring that the organization maintains its compliance posture and protects sensitive information as mandated by relevant frameworks. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the implementation based solely on vendor documentation and without a thorough internal assessment of the existing environment. This fails to account for unique organizational configurations, legacy systems, or specific security policies that might not be covered by generic vendor guidance. This can lead to unexpected compatibility issues, performance degradation, and security gaps, potentially violating data protection regulations by exposing sensitive information or compromising system integrity. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over a comprehensive impact assessment, assuming that any issues will be minor and easily resolved post-implementation. This is a high-risk strategy that disregards the potential for cascading failures or significant service disruptions. It demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and can result in breaches of service-level agreements, SLAs, and regulatory noncompliance, particularly in sectors with strict uptime and data security requirements. A third incorrect approach is to focus the impact assessment narrowly on technical performance metrics, neglecting the security and compliance implications. This oversight can lead to the introduction of new vulnerabilities or the weakening of existing security controls, which could result in unauthorized access to sensitive data or a failure to meet regulatory mandates for data privacy and security. This demonstrates a failure to uphold ethical obligations and legal requirements related to data protection. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to impact assessment. This involves 1. Defining the scope, clearly outlining what aspects of the Avaya Scopia solution and the existing environment will be assessed. 2. Identifying stakeholders, engaging all relevant parties to ensure a holistic view. 3. Gathering information, collecting data on current systems, user needs, security policies, and regulatory requirements. 4. Analyzing impacts, evaluating potential effects on performance, security, compliance, and business operation. 5. Identifying risks, determining the likelihood and severity of potential negative outcomes. 6. Developing mitigation strategies, planning actions to prevent or reduce the impact of identified risks. 7. Documenting findings, creating a comprehensive report that informs decision-making. 8. Review and approval, obtaining sign-off from key stakeholders before proceeding with implementation. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and compliance is maintained, reflecting a commitment to professional diligence and ethical conduct. Question 2. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the sales team requires immediate enhancements to the Avaya Scopia solution, reporting capabilities to better track lead conversion rates, a critical metric for their performance. Given the urgency expressed by the sales department, which of the following approaches best balances the immediate business need with the overall stability and functionality of the Avaya Scopia solution? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify all affected components, dependencies, potential risks, and resource requirements before implementing any changes to the reporting module. Option B. Focus solely on the technical implementation of the new reporting features, assuming that any broader system implications will be minor and manageable post-deployment. Option C. Immediately implement the requested reporting enhancements to satisfy the sales team's urgent request, addressing any unforeseen issues as they arise. Option D. Prioritize the sales team's request above all other system maintenance or development activities, proceeding with the implementation without a formal assessment. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify all affected components, dependencies, potential risks, and resource requirements before implementing any changes to the reporting module. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT solution implementation, balancing the immediate needs of a critical business function with the broader, long-term implications of a system change. The urgency of the sales team's request for enhanced reporting capabilities, directly tied to revenue generation, creates pressure to act quickly. However, a hasty implementation without proper impact assessment risks disrupting other essential Avaya Scopia solution functionalities, potentially affecting other departments and overall business operations. The challenge lies in managing competing priorities and ensuring that any change, even one driven by a high-priority stakeholder, is executed responsibly and with due diligence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough impact assessment before proceeding with the requested changes. This aligns with best professional practices for IT system management and implementation, emphasizing a structured and risk-aware methodology. A comprehensive impact assessment would involve identifying all affected components of the Avaya Scopia solution, understanding dependencies, evaluating potential performance degradation, assessing security implications, and determining the necessary resources for implementation and testing. This proactive step ensures that the proposed changes are understood in their entirety, potential risks are mitigated, and the solution remains stable and functional across all its intended uses. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the integrity and reliability of the system for all users and business functions, preventing unintended negative consequences. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the changes immediately without any assessment is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses critical risk management protocols. This approach disregards the potential for cascading failures within the Avaya Scopia solution, which could lead to significant business disruption beyond the sales department, impacting customer service, internal communications, or other vital operations. This failure to consider the broader system context is a direct violation of professional responsibility to maintain system stability and reliability. Prioritizing the sales team's request solely based on their perceived urgency, without evaluating the technical feasibility or broader impact, is also professionally unsound. While stakeholder needs are important, they must be balanced against the operational integrity of the entire solution. This approach risks alienating other departments whose operations might be negatively affected by a poorly planned change, leading to a loss of trust and potential reputational damage. Focusing only on the technical aspects of the reporting enhancement without considering the user experience or training needs for the sales team is incomplete. While technical implementation is crucial, a successful solution also requires that end users can effectively utilize the new features. Neglecting this aspect can lead to underutilization of the new functionality and continued dissatisfaction, even if the technical implementation is flawless. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach to managing changes within complex IT solutions like the Avaya Scopia platform. This involves a clear change management process that mandates an impact assessment for any proposed modification. The decision-making process should prioritize understanding the full scope of a request, identifying all potential consequences, technical, operational, and user-related, and evaluating risks before committing to implementation. This structured approach ensures that solutions are implemented effectively, reliably, and with minimal disruption to the overall business. When faced with urgent requests, professionals must still adhere to these established processes, perhaps by expediting the assessment phase rather than skipping it entirely, and communicating transparently with stakeholders about the necessity of due diligence. Question 3. The efficiency study reveals that users are experiencing frequent and unpredictable disconnections during Avaya Scopia registered video conferencing sessions. The IT team has observed that these disconnections appear to occur more frequently during peak usage hours. Which of the following diagnostic approaches is most likely to lead to an accurate and efficient resolution of this issue? Option A. Analyze network traffic patterns and quality of service, CoS configurations for the Avaya Scopia registered solution, and review system logs for error messages related to network interfaces and session management. Option B. Immediately initiate a full system diagnostic on the Avaya Scopia registered appliance and schedule a hardware replacement if any anomalies are detected. Option C. Reinstall the Avaya Scopia registered software on the server, assuming a corrupted installation is the root cause of the connectivity problems. Option D. Advise users to reduce their video resolution settings and avoid sharing large files during conferences until the issue is resolved. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a full system diagnostic on the Avaya Scopia registered appliance and schedule a hardware replacement if any anomalies are detected. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that the Avaya Scopia registered solution is experiencing intermittent connectivity issues impacting user experience and productivity. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of the Avaya Scopia registered solutions architecture, common failure points, and the ability to systematically diagnose and resolve complex technical problems under pressure. The challenge is amplified by the need to balance immediate resolution with long-term stability and adherence to best practices for system maintenance. The correct approach involves a methodical, layered troubleshooting process that begins with verifying the fundamental network infrastructure supporting the Avaya Scopia registered solution. This includes checking IP connectivity, DNS resolution, firewall rules, and quality of service, CoS configuration. Subsequently, the focus shifts to the Avaya Scopia registered components themselves, examining logs for error messages, verifying service status, and assessing resource utilization, CPU, memory, disk. This systematic approach ensures that all potential causes are investigated, from the most basic to the most complex, thereby increasing the likelihood of an accurate diagnosis and a permanent fix. This represents best professional practice as it aligns with established ITIL principles for incident management and problem resolution, emphasizing a structured and evidence-based approach to minimize downtime and prevent recurrence. An incorrect approach would be to immediately assume a hardware failure within the Avaya Scopia registered appliance, without first ruling out environmental factors like network congestion or misconfigurations. This bypasses critical diagnostic steps and can lead to unnecessary hardware replacement, increased costs, and prolonged downtime. Another incorrect approach is to make broad configuration changes to the Avaya Scopia registered solution without understanding the potential impact on other services or without a clear hypothesis for the problem. This can introduce new issues and further complicate the troubleshooting process. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on vendor support without performing initial internal diagnostics. While vendor support is crucial, a proactive internal investigation demonstrates due diligence and provides valuable information to the vendor, leading to a more efficient resolution. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes systematic investigation. This framework includes 1. Problem definition, clearly understanding the symptoms and impact. 2. Information gathering, collecting logs, network data, and user feedback. 3. Hypothesis generation, formulating potential causes based on gathered information. 4. Testing and validation, systematically testing each hypothesis starting with the most probable and least intrusive. 5. Resolution and verification, implementing the fix and confirming its effectiveness. 6. Documentation and prevention, recording the issue, resolution, and implementing measures to prevent recurrence. This methodical process ensures that solutions are robust and that the underlying causes are addressed, rather than just the symptoms. Question 4. Research into the implementation of Avaya Scopia solutions within a regulated industry in the exam jurisdiction reveals a need to ensure data privacy and security. Considering the specific regulatory framework for this jurisdiction, which approach to configuring and maintaining the Avaya Scopia solution best aligns with compliance requirements? Option A. Focus primarily on achieving the highest possible audio and video quality for all users, utilizing default security settings provided by the vendor, and deferring extensive documentation of configurations until a future audit. Option B. Prioritize the use of the latest firmware and software versions, ensuring all security patches are applied promptly, and implement robust access control mechanisms based on the principle of least privilege, with all configuration changes meticulously documented and logged. Option C. Configure the system with broad user access to all features to maximize collaboration, relying on user awareness training to manage security risks, and only documenting critical system failures. Option D. Implement the solution using the most cost-effective hardware and software components available, assuming that vendor-provided security features are sufficient without further configuration or verification, and conduct minimal documentation to reduce administrative overhead. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the use of the latest firmware and software versions, ensuring all security patches are applied promptly, and implement robust access control mechanisms based on the principle of least privilege, with all configuration changes meticulously documented and logged. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of maintaining secure and compliant communication systems within an organization. The Avaya Scopia solution, as a video conferencing and collaboration platform, handles sensitive internal and potentially external communications. Ensuring its implementation and maintenance adheres to the specific regulatory framework governing the exam jurisdiction is paramount. The challenge lies in balancing the technical requirements of the Scopia solution with the legal and compliance obligations of the organization. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and application of the relevant regulatory framework for the exam jurisdiction. This ensures that the implementation and maintenance of the Avaya Scopia solution are not only technically sound, but also legally defensible and ethically responsible. Adherence to these regulations mitigates risks of data breaches, privacy violations, and non-compliance penalties, thereby safeguarding the organization's reputation and operational integrity. An incorrect approach that overlooks or misinterprets the regulatory framework would lead to significant professional and organizational failures. Specifically, failing to implement appropriate security controls as mandated by the jurisdiction's data protection laws, e.g., GDPR if the jurisdiction were the EU, or equivalent local legislation, would constitute a regulatory failure, potentially resulting in substantial fines and legal repercussions. Similarly, neglecting to document configurations and maintenance activities according to compliance standards would be an ethical failure, hindering auditability and accountability. Another incorrect approach might involve prioritizing cost savings over compliance, leading to the use of unsupported or insecure configurations that violate regulatory mandates for system integrity and data security. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, Identify and thoroughly understand all applicable regulations for the exam jurisdiction related to communication systems and data handling. Second, assess the Avaya Scopia solution's features and functionalities against these regulatory requirements. Third, develop an implementation and maintenance plan that explicitly addresses each regulatory mandate, incorporating necessary security controls, documentation procedures, and training. Finally, conduct regular reviews and audits to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to any changes in regulations or technology. Question 5. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to implementing new communication technologies. Considering the potential impact on data security and user adoption, what is the most prudent strategy for deploying the Avaya Scopia solution within a regulated environment? Option A. Deploy the solution using only the vendor's default security configurations, assuming they meet all necessary compliance standards without further verification. Option B. Prioritize a phased implementation that includes thorough security risk assessments, comprehensive user training, and pilot testing before a full-scale deployment. Option C. Implement the solution rapidly to meet immediate business needs, deferring detailed security reviews and user training until after the initial rollout. Option D. Focus solely on technical integration with existing infrastructure, assuming that user adoption and security will naturally follow once the system is operational. The correct answer is C. Implement the solution rapidly to meet immediate business needs, deferring detailed security reviews and user training until after the initial rollout. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing advanced communication solutions like Avaya Scopia. The core difficulty lies in balancing the immediate operational needs of the organization with the long-term strategic goals and the regulatory compliance landscape. Specifically, the pressure to deploy quickly without thorough consideration of security implications and user adoption can lead to significant risks, including data breaches, non-compliance with data privacy regulations, and ultimately, a failed technology investment. The need for a robust, secure, and user-friendly system that aligns with business objectives and regulatory mandates requires careful, deliberate planning. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a phased implementation that includes comprehensive security assessments, user training, and pilot testing. This aligns with best practices for IT project management and regulatory compliance. From a regulatory perspective, particularly concerning data privacy and security, e.g., GDPR principles if applicable to the jurisdiction, or similar local data protection laws. A thorough security assessment ensures that the Avaya Scopia solution is configured to protect sensitive information, preventing unauthorized access and data breaches. User training and pilot testing are crucial for ensuring adoption and identifying potential usability issues before a full rollout, which indirectly supports compliance by ensuring the system is used as intended and that users are aware of security protocols. This approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to both operational efficiency and regulatory adherence. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing speed of deployment over security and user readiness. This directly contravenes regulatory requirements for data protection and system security. Failing to conduct a thorough security risk assessment before deployment leaves the organization vulnerable to cyber threats and potential data breaches, which can result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and legal liabilities under data protection laws. Furthermore, neglecting user training and adoption planning leads to underutilization of the system and potential workarounds that bypass security controls, further increasing risk. Another incorrect approach is to implement the solution without considering integration with existing IT infrastructure and security policies. This can create security gaps and compliance issues. For instance, if the Avaya Scopia solution is not properly integrated with existing firewalls, access control systems, or logging mechanisms, it may bypass established security protocols, creating vulnerabilities. Regulatory frameworks often mandate that all IT systems, regardless of their function, must adhere to overarching security policies and be auditable. A lack of integration hinders the ability to monitor system activity and respond to security incidents effectively, leading to non-compliance. A third incorrect approach is to assume that the vendor's default security settings are sufficient without independent verification. While vendors strive for secure products, specific organizational needs and the prevailing regulatory environment may necessitate custom configurations. Relying solely on default settings without a tailored security review can leave the organization exposed to risks that the vendor's standard configuration does not address. Regulatory bodies often expect organizations to demonstrate proactive risk management, which includes validating and customizing security measures to meet specific compliance obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such a decision should employ a structured decision-making process. First, clearly define the project's objectives, including both business and compliance requirements. Second, conduct a thorough risk assessment, identifying potential security vulnerabilities and regulatory noncompliance risks associated with the proposed implementation. Third, evaluate different implementation strategies, weighing the benefits of speed against the risks of inadequate security and user adoption. Fourth, consult relevant regulatory guidelines and internal security policies to ensure all proposed actions align with legal and ethical obligations. Finally, prioritize a phased approach that allows for continuous monitoring, testing, and adaptation to ensure the solution is secure, effective, and compliant throughout its lifecycle. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that a critical Avaya Scopia solution is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, impacting user experience and call quality. The implementation team is under pressure to restore full functionality immediately. While investigating, they discover a potential configuration conflict that might be related to a recent, minor software update. The team has identified a potential quick fix involving disabling a specific logging feature, which they believe will alleviate the immediate performance issues, but they are unsure if this aligns with Avaya's recommended maintenance procedures or if it introduces any security risks. What is the most professional and compliant course of action for the implementation team to take? Option A. Consult Avaya's official documentation and support channels to identify the recommended procedure for addressing performance issues related to recent software updates and apply the vendor-approved solution. Option B. Revert the Scopia solution to its previous stable version before the minor software update, assuming the update caused the issue, and then reevaluate the update later. Option C. Implement a workaround by adjusting network co-S parameters to prioritize Scopia traffic, without directly addressing the potential configuration conflict within the Scopia solution itself. Option D. Immediately disable the logging feature as a temporary measure to restore performance, and then investigate the root cause and proper fix at a later time. The correct answer is D. Immediately disable the logging feature as a temporary measure to restore performance, and then investigate the root cause and proper fix at a later time. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in maintaining secure and compliant communication systems. The core difficulty lies in balancing the immediate need for system functionality with the long-term implications of security vulnerabilities and adherence to Avaya's recommended maintenance practices. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise security or violate established protocols, potentially exposing sensitive data or leading to future system instability. Professional judgment is required to assess the risks associated with each potential solution and to prioritize actions that ensure both immediate operational needs and long-term system integrity and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough investigation and remediation of the root cause of the performance degradation. This aligns with best practices for system maintenance and security. By analyzing logs, identifying the specific configuration issue, and applying the appropriate Avaya-recommended patch or configuration change, the implementation team addresses the underlying problem. This method ensures that the solution is robust, prevents recurrence, and maintains the integrity of the Scopia solution according to Avaya's guidelines. This proactive and systematic approach minimizes the risk of introducing new vulnerabilities or causing further system instability, thereby upholding professional standards for system maintenance and security. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a temporary workaround without addressing the root cause, such as disabling a security feature or reverting to an older, less secure configuration, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach prioritizes immediate availability over security, potentially exposing the organization to data breaches and non-compliance with data protection regulations. It also violates the principle of maintaining systems in a secure and up-to-date state, which is a fundamental aspect of professional IT practice. Applying a generic, unverified fix from an unofficial source is also professionally unacceptable. This bypasses Avaya's established support channels and testing procedures. It carries a high risk of introducing further instability, security vulnerabilities, or incompatibility issues with the Scopia solution. This action demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the vendor's recommended maintenance and support framework, which can lead to significant operational and security risks. Failing to document the troubleshooting steps and the eventual resolution is a procedural and ethical lapse. Proper documentation is crucial for future reference, auditing, and knowledge transfer. Without it, the team may struggle to diagnose similar issues in the future, and compliance audits would be compromised. This lack of record-keeping undermines the transparency and accountability expected in professional IT operations. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should employ a structured problem-solving methodology. This involves 1. Incident identification and prioritization. Clearly define the problem and its impact. 2. Information gathering. Collect all relevant logs, system status, and user reports. 3. Root cause analysis. Systematically investigate to identify the underlying issue, utilizing vendor documentation and support. 4. Solution development and testing. Propose and test solutions that address the root cause, adhering to vendor recommendations and security best practices. 5. Implementation and verification. Deploy the validated solution and confirm its effectiveness. 6. Documentation and knowledge sharing. Record all steps, findings, and resolutions for future reference and continuous improvement. This systematic approach ensures that solutions are effective, secure, and compliant, fostering trust and maintaining the integrity of the IT infrastructure. Question 7. Which approach would be most appropriate for managing software updates and configuration changes on an Avaya Scopia solution deployed within a financial services organization subject to strict data privacy and security regulations? Option A. Relying solely on the vendor's compliance statements and certifications to validate that all updates and configuration changes meet regulatory standards, without independent verification or internal assessment. Option B. Establishing a formal change management process that includes a thorough review of proposed updates and configuration changes against all applicable regulatory requirements, conducting risk assessments, and obtaining necessary approvals before implementation. Option C. Implementing all vendor-recommended updates and configuration changes immediately upon release to ensure the system remains current and secure, without prior detailed review against specific regulatory mandates. Option D. Prioritizing updates that introduce new features or enhance user experience, deferring any changes that appear complex or time-consuming to assess for regulatory compliance until a later, less busy period. Correct answer is C. Implementing all vendor-recommended updates and configuration changes immediately upon release to ensure the system remains current and secure, without prior detailed review against specific regulatory mandates. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to maintaining the integrity and compliance of a deployed Avaya Scopia solution within a regulated environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for system updates and enhancements with the stringent requirements of regulatory frameworks that govern data privacy, security, and operational continuity. A hasty or uninformed approach to patching or upgrading could inadvertently introduce vulnerabilities or disrupt services, leading to non-compliance and potential penalties. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all changes are assessed for their impact on regulatory adherence. The correct approach involves a proactive and documented process of evaluating all proposed system modifications against the relevant regulatory framework. This includes conducting thorough risk assessments, verifying that updates do not compromise data encryption or access controls mandated by regulations, and ensuring that any changes to logging or auditing mechanisms align with compliance requirements. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the law and ethical obligations. It demonstrates due diligence in safeguarding sensitive information and maintaining the security posture of the communication system, thereby preventing breaches and ensuring uninterrupted service delivery as required by regulatory bodies. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control and risk assessment procedures is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes regulatory requirements for documented change management and security validation. Such an approach risks introducing security flaws, violating data privacy mandates by exposing sensitive information, or disrupting critical communication channels, all of which constitute significant regulatory and ethical failures. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on implementing the latest features without considering their compliance implications, is equally flawed. This demonstrates a disregard for the regulatory landscape and could lead to the deployment of a system that, while technologically advanced, is non-compliant with data handling, access, or auditing standards. This failure to integrate compliance into the implementation lifecycle is a serious ethical lapse. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured framework. First, identify all applicable regulatory requirements relevant to the communication solution and its data. Second, establish a robust change management process that mandates the assessment of any proposed modification against these regulatory requirements. Third, conduct thorough risk assessments for each change, specifically evaluating potential impacts on data security, privacy, and operational continuity. Fourth, obtain necessary approvals from compliance and security stakeholders before implementation. Finally, maintain comprehensive documentation of all changes, assessments, and approvals to demonstrate ongoing compliance. Question 8. The review process indicates that during the implementation of an Avaya Scopia registered solution for a US-based healthcare provider, the project team focused primarily on achieving full functionality and rapid deployment, with minimal explicit consideration for data privacy implications beyond basic security measures. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory compliance and professional best practices for this scenario? Option A. Conduct a thorough privacy impact assessment to identify potential risks related to protected health information. 5. And ensure the implementation adheres to HIPAA requirements and relevant state privacy laws, documenting all mitigation strategies. Option B. Proceed with the implementation as planned, assuming that the standard Avaya Scopia registered security features are sufficient to meet all U.S. healthcare data privacy regulations. Option C. Implement the Avaya Scopia registered solution with a focus on broad data collection capabilities, allowing the client to determine privacy needs post-implementation. Option D. Defer all data privacy compliance responsibilities to the client's legal department, focusing solely on the technical aspects of the Avaya Scopia registered solutions functionality. Correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough privacy impact assessment to identify potential risks related to protected health information. 5. And ensure the implementation adheres to HIPAA requirements and relevant state privacy laws, documenting all mitigation strategies. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential gap in the implementation of Avaya Scopia registered solutions concerning data privacy and regulatory compliance, specifically within the context of the United States. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the implementation engineer to balance technical functionality with stringent legal and ethical obligations. Failure to adhere to these regulations can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. The correct approach, which involves proactively identifying and mitigating potential data privacy risks during the implementation phase by consulting relevant U.S. privacy laws such as HIPAA, if applicable to the client's industry, and general data protection principles, represents best professional practice. This proactive stance ensures that the Avaya Scopia registered solution is deployed in a manner that is compliant with U.S. federal and state privacy regulations from the outset. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible technology deployment and client data security, aligning with ethical engineering principles and the implied duty of care to protect sensitive information. An incorrect approach that involves prioritizing rapid deployment over thorough privacy impact assessment would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, potentially exposing the organization to risks under regulations like the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, or similar state-level privacy laws, by collecting or processing data without adequate justification or safeguards. Another incorrect approach, such as assuming that standard Avaya Scopia registered configurations are inherently compliant with all U.S. privacy laws without specific verification, is also professionally unsound. This oversight could lead to non-compliance with specific industry regulations or client-specific data handling requirements, creating legal liabilities. It neglects the responsibility to understand the unique data processing activities and the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the client's operations. A further incorrect approach, which is to defer all privacy compliance responsibilities to the client's legal team without providing technical input or recommendations, is a missed opportunity for best practice. While the client's legal team holds ultimate responsibility, the implementation engineer has a professional duty to flag potential compliance issues related to the technology being deployed and to offer solutions that support regulatory adherence. This passive approach can lead to costly retrofits or operational disruption if compliance gaps are discovered late in the process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based approach. This entails understanding the client's industry and the specific data types processed by the Avaya Scopia registered solution. It requires consulting relevant U.S. privacy regulations and best practices, conducting a privacy impact assessment, and integrating privacy by design principles into the implementation plan. Collaboration with the client's legal and compliance teams is crucial, but the technical professional must also be equipped to identify and address technology-related privacy concerns. Question 9. The analysis reveals that during the implementation of a new Avaya Scopia solution, a critical aspect of the project is to ensure the system's security and reliability. Which of the following approaches to managing potential risks associated with this implementation best aligns with professional best practices and the implicit requirements for secure communication systems? Option A. Prioritize rapid deployment of the Avaya Scopia solution to meet business deadlines, deferring detailed risk analysis to a later phase. Option B. Rely entirely on the vendor's pre-deployment security checks and assume all risks are adequately addressed. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats, analyzes their impact, and develops mitigation strategies before full deployment. Option D. Focus exclusively on the technical features and functionalities of the Avaya Scopia solution, assuming that advanced technology inherently mitigates all potential risks. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats, analyzes their impact, and develops mitigation strategies before full deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because implementing a new Avaya Scopia solution involves inherent risks that could impact business operations, data security, and user experience. The challenge lies in proactively identifying, assessing, and mitigating these risks within the defined regulatory framework for the 3108 Avaya Scopia registered solution implementation and maintenance exam. Careful judgment is required to balance the benefits of the new technology with potential downsides, ensuring compliance and operational integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically addresses the risk assessment process as mandated by standard IT implementation guidelines, and implicitly by the need for secure and reliable communication systems, which are often subject to regulatory oversight. A thorough risk assessment ensures that potential vulnerabilities are identified early, allowing for the development of effective mitigation strategies. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of security breaches, service disruptions, and non-compliance with any relevant data protection or communication regulations applicable to the exam's jurisdiction. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to a robust and secure implementation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical capabilities of the Avaya Scopia solution without considering potential risks fails to meet professional standards. This oversight can lead to security vulnerabilities, data breaches, or operational failures, potentially violating data protection laws or industry-specific regulations that mandate risk management for IT systems. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over a comprehensive risk assessment is also professionally unacceptable. Rushing an implementation without proper risk evaluation can result in overlooked security flaws or integration issues, leading to significant business disruption and potential regulatory penalties. This approach demonstrates a lack of foresight and adherence to best practices in system deployment. Finally, an approach that delegates the entire risk assessment to a third-party vendor without internal validation or oversight is flawed. While vendors have expertise, they ultimate responsibility for system security and compliance rests with the implementing organization. Failing to conduct internal due diligence and validation can lead to the adoption of inadequate security measures or a misunderstanding of the specific risks relevant to the organization's environment, potentially resulting in regulatory noncompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk management framework. This includes identifying all potential risks, technical, operational, security, compliance, analyzing their likelihood and impact, evaluating existing controls, and developing appropriate mitigation or acceptance strategies. Regular review and updates to the risk assessment throughout the implementation and maintenance lifecycle are also crucial. Question 10. The evaluation methodology shows that a critical step in the Avaya Scopia solution implementation is the proactive identification and management of potential issues. Considering the need for a robust and compliant deployment, which of the following risk assessment strategies best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory expectations for ensuring solution integrity and security? Option A. Relying exclusively on the standard risk assessment templates provided by the Avaya vendor, assuming they cover all potential risks for any implementation. Option B. Conducting a thorough risk assessment that involves identifying potential threats, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing tailored mitigation strategies based on the specific deployment environment and business objectives. Option C. Performing a risk assessment that focuses solely on technical vulnerabilities, without incorporating potential operational disruptions or user-related challenges. Option D. Prioritizing the rapid deployment of the Avaya Scopia solution to meet immediate business needs, with risk assessment being a secondary consideration to be addressed post-implementation. The correct answer is B. Conducting a thorough risk assessment that involves identifying potential threats, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing tailored mitigation strategies based on the specific deployment environment and business objectives. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because implementing a new Avaya Scopia solution involves inherent risks that could impact business operations, data security, and user experience. The challenge lies in identifying, assessing, and mitigating these risks effectively within the constraints of the Avaya Scopia solution implementation and maintenance exam's regulatory framework, which implicitly prioritizes compliance and operational integrity. A robust risk assessment is crucial to ensure the solution meets security standards, performs reliably, and adheres to any applicable data privacy regulations relevant to the implementation environment. The correct approach, focusing on a comprehensive risk assessment that involves identifying potential threats, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of due diligence in technology deployments. By systematically evaluating potential vulnerabilities and their consequences, professionals can proactively address issues before they affect the business, ensuring a secure and stable implementation. This methodical process is essential for maintaining trust and demonstrating responsible system management. An incorrect approach that solely relies on vendor documentation without independent verification fails to acknowledge the specific operational context and potential unique vulnerabilities of the deployed environment. This can lead to overlooking critical risks that are not explicitly detailed in generic documentation, potentially resulting in security breaches or performance degradation, which would be a regulatory and ethical failure. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes speed of deployment over thorough risk analysis, neglects the fundamental responsibility to ensure the solution is secure and reliable. This haste can lead to the introduction of unaddressed risks, compromising data integrity and operational continuity, thereby failing to meet professional standards of care and potentially violating compliance requirements. Lastly, an approach that ignores user feedback during the assessment phase overlooks a crucial source of information regarding usability and potential operational disruptions. This can result in a solution that, while technically functional, is not effectively adopted or may introduce unforeseen operational risks due to user-related issues, representing a failure in comprehensive risk management. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific business context and regulatory landscape. This involves a structured risk assessment process that includes stakeholder consultation, technical analysis, and consideration of operational impacts. The framework should prioritize identifying all potential risks, evaluating their severity, and developing a prioritized mitigation plan. Regular review and updates to the risk assessment throughout the implementation and maintenance lifecycle are also critical to adapt to evolving threats and operational changes. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals that several Avaya Scopia solution components are exhibiting minor performance degradations, and a backlog of feature requests from end users has accumulated. Simultaneously, a recent internal audit highlighted a few configuration settings that have drifted from Avaya's recommended baseline for optimal security and stability. Which approach best addresses these findings while adhering to professional maintenance standards? Option A. Address the configuration drift and performance degradations concurrently, deferring all user feature requests until the system is fully optimized. Option B. Focus on resolving the minor performance degradations first, as these are directly impacting user experience, and then tackle the configuration drift and feature requests. Option C. Prioritize addressing the configuration drift identified by the audit to ensure system security and stability, followed by a systematic review and implementation of user feature requests. And finally, investigate the root causes of the minor performance degradations. Option D. Immediately implement all accumulated user feature requests to improve user satisfaction, and then address the configuration drift and performance degradations as time permits. The correct answer is C. Prioritize addressing the configuration drift identified by the audit to ensure system security and stability, followed by a systematic review and implementation of user feature requests. And finally, investigate the root causes of the minor performance degradations. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT solution maintenance, balancing immediate operational needs with long-term system health and compliance. The Avaya Scopia solution, like any complex communication platform, requires ongoing attention to its configuration and performance to ensure it meets both user expectations and regulatory mandates. The professional challenge lies in prioritizing tasks when faced with multiple demands, some of which may seem urgent but could have downstream compliance implications if not handled correctly. Careful judgment is required to assess the true impact of each proposed action on system stability, security, and adherence to any relevant operational guidelines or service-level agreements, SLAs, that might be implicitly or explicitly tied to regulatory compliance. The correct approach prioritizes actions that address potential security vulnerabilities and ensure the integrity of the system's configuration. This aligns with best professional practice by proactively mitigating risks that could lead to service disruption, data breaches, or non-compliance with Avaya's recommended maintenance procedures. Maintaining the system's security posture and configuration integrity is paramount to ensuring reliable and compliant operation, which is a core tenet of responsible IT system maintenance. This approach demonstrates a commitment to upholding the operational standards expected of a maintained Avaya Scopia solution. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cosmetic or minor functional improvements without addressing underlying configuration drift or potential security gaps would be professionally unacceptable. Such an approach risks overlooking critical issues that could compromise the system's security or stability, potentially leading to regulatory scrutiny or service failures. For instance, ignoring a configuration setting that deviates from Avaya's best practices, even if it doesn't cause immediate user complaints, could create a vulnerability that is later exploited. Another incorrect approach might be to implement changes without proper documentation or testing, which violates fundamental IT best practices and can lead to unforeseen consequences, making troubleshooting difficult and potentially introducing new compliance risks. The failure here is in not adhering to established maintenance protocols and risk management principles. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. This means evaluating each proposed action based on its potential impact on system security, stability, compliance, and user experience. Prioritization should be given to actions that address identified risks, especially those related to security and configuration integrity. Consulting Avaya's official documentation and support resources for recommended maintenance procedures and best practices is crucial. Furthermore, any changes should be planned, tested in a non-production environment, and documented thoroughly to ensure accountability and facilitate future maintenance. Question 12. During the evaluation of the Avaya Scopia solution implementation, it was discovered that the chosen configuration for media encryption does not fully align with the organization's stringent internal data security policy regarding the minimum acceptable encryption strength for real-time communication data. This policy was established to ensure compliance with general data protection principles. What is the most professional and compliant course of action? Option A. Manually adjust the encryption settings on the Avaya Scopia solution to meet the policy requirements without formal documentation or approval, as this is a common practice to expedite deployments. Option B. Immediately implement the solution as planned, assuming the current encryption strength is sufficient for most use cases, and addressing any potential policy gaps in a future update. Option C. Halt the entire implementation project until a new encryption standard can be researched and implemented that definitively meets the internal policy, even if it significantly delays the project timeline. Option D. Proceed with the implementation using the current configuration, documenting the deviation, and initiating a formal policy exception request with a detailed risk assessment and proposed mitigation strategy for review by the security and compliance teams. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the implementation using the current configuration, documenting the deviation, and initiating a formal policy exception request with a detailed risk assessment and proposed mitigation strategy for review by the security and compliance teams. Explanation. The scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical component of the Avaya Scopia solution, specifically the signaling and control mechanisms for secure video conferencing, is found to be non-compliant with the organization's internal security policies and potentially external regulatory requirements for data privacy and secure communication. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a functional system with the imperative to maintain security and compliance. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of identifying the noncompliance, assessing the risk, and implementing a remediation plan that aligns with both internal policies and relevant regulations. This demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing security and compliance, ensuring transparency through documentation, and engaging relevant stakeholders for informed decision-making. This aligns with the general principles of IT governance and risk management, which are implicitly expected in any professional implementation scenario, even without specific regulatory mandates being explicitly stated for this particular exam. The focus is on proactive risk mitigation and adherence to established security baselines. An incorrect approach that bypasses established security protocols or policy reviews to achieve immediate functionality is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to significant security vulnerabilities, data breaches, and potential regulatory penalties if the non-compliant component handles sensitive information. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and a failure to uphold professional responsibility in safeguarding organizational assets and data. It also undermines the integrity of the implementation process and the trust placed in the implementer. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying the implementation indefinitely without a clear remediation plan, is also professionally deficient. While it avoids immediate risk, it fails to address the underlying issue and hinders the organization's ability to leverage the intended benefits of the Avaya Scopia solution. This can lead to project stagnation and missed opportunities. A third incorrect approach, which involves making ad hoc, undocumented changes to circumvent the compliance issue, is highly risky and unprofessional. This creates an unmanageable system state, makes future troubleshooting difficult, and can introduce unforeseen security flaws. It is a direct violation of sound IT practices and can be considered negligent. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve 1. Thoroughly understanding the requirements, including security policies and any applicable regulatory frameworks. 2. Identifying and documenting any deviations or noncompliance. 3. Conducting a risk assessment of the identified issues. 4. Developing and proposing a remediation plan with clear steps, timelines, and resource allocation. 5. Obtaining necessary approvals from relevant stakeholders, e.g., security compliance management. 6. Implementing the approved remediation plan. 7. Verifying the effectiveness of the remediation. 8. Documenting the entire process. Question 13. Benchmark analysis indicates that Avaya Scopia video conferencing endpoints are experiencing intermittent connectivity failures, impacting user experience and operational efficiency. The implementation team needs to identify the most effective initial diagnostic steps to resolve this issue promptly. Option A. Focus exclusively on updating the firmware on all affected endpoints to the latest available version, assuming this will resolve the connectivity issues. Option B. Primarily analyze the logs of the Avaya Scopia management server for any system-wide errors that might be impacting endpoint connectivity. Option C. Immediately initiate deep packet inspection on the network traffic between the endpoint and the Scopia MCU to analyze packet loss and latency. Option D. Verify basic network connectivity to the endpoint and Scopia infrastructure. Check endpoint registration status and logs, review Scopia infrastructure logs, and confirm endpoint configuration and firmware versions. The correct answer is D. Verify basic network connectivity to the endpoint and Scopia infrastructure. Check endpoint registration status and logs, review Scopia infrastructure logs, and confirm endpoint configuration and firmware versions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical component of the Avaya Scopia solution, the video conferencing endpoint, is experiencing intermittent connectivity issues. The challenge lies in diagnosing the root cause efficiently and effectively while minimizing disruption to ongoing business operations. The pressure to restore service quickly, coupled with the complexity of network infrastructure and endpoint configurations, requires a systematic and informed approach. The professional challenge is to balance speed of resolution with thoroughness of investigation, ensuring that the fix is permanent and not just a temporary workaround. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical, layered troubleshooting process that begins with the most fundamental elements and progresses to more complex ones. This aligns with best practices in IT troubleshooting and aligns with the principles of maintaining a secure and reliable communication infrastructure, which is implicitly governed by the need for operational integrity and service availability. Starting with verifying basic network connectivity, ping, traceroute, to the endpoint, and the Scopia infrastructure ensures that the foundational network layer is functioning. Subsequently, checking endpoint registration status and logs provides direct insight into the device's interaction with the Scopia management system. Examining Scopia infrastructure logs, MACU, management, helps identify any system-level issues that might be affecting multiple endpoints or specific calls. Finally, reviewing endpoint configuration and firmware versions addresses potential software-related problems. This systematic approach minimizes the risk of overlooking a simple cause and ensures that all potential failure points are considered in a logical order, leading to a more accurate and sustainable resolution. This adherence to a structured diagnostic process is crucial for maintaining the integrity and reliability of the communication services, which is a core tenet of professional IT service delivery. Incorrect approaches analysis. Immediately jumping to advanced network diagnostics like deep packet inspection without verifying basic connectivity or endpoint registration is inefficient and may miss simpler issues. This approach risks wasting valuable time and resources on complex analyses when a straightforward configuration error or network drop might be the culprit. It also bypasses the initial steps that would confirm the endpoint's basic ability to communicate, potentially leading to misdiagnosis. Focusing solely on endpoint firmware updates without investigating network or infrastructure logs is also problematic. While firmware can be a source of issues, it's not the only one. This approach assumes a specific cause without evidence, potentially leading to unnecessary downtime for firmware upgrades if the actual problem lies elsewhere. It fails to consider the interconnected nature of the Scopia solution. Only examining Scopia infrastructure logs without checking the endpoint itself is incomplete. The problem might be specific to the endpoint's configuration, network connection, or hardware, and infrastructure logs might not reveal these endpoint-specific details. This approach neglects the individual component's health and its direct interaction with the network. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such an implementation challenge should adopt a structured troubleshooting methodology. This involves 1. Understanding the reported symptoms clearly. 2. Formulating hypotheses about potential causes. 3. Prioritizing hypotheses based on likelihood and ease of testing. 4. Testing hypotheses systematically, starting with the simplest and most probable. 5. Documenting all steps taken and findings. 6. Escalating or seeking further assistance if initial steps are inconclusive. This process ensures that troubleshooting is efficient, effective, and minimizes business impact, adhering to professional standards of service delivery and problem resolution. Question 14. Market research demonstrates that clients often request specific configurations for video conferencing solutions based on perceived ease of use or familiarity, sometimes overlooking critical security implications. An Avaya Scopia registered solution implementation engineer is tasked with deploying a new system for a financial services firm. The client's IT manager insists on disabling a specific security feature, citing a desire for simpler user access and faster connection times, without fully understanding the potential vulnerabilities this creates. The engineer recognizes that this feature is a key component of the solution's overall security posture, and its removal would significantly increase the risk of unauthorized access and data interception, potentially violating industry compliance standards for financial data. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Avaya Scopia registered solution implementation engineer in this situation? Option A. Implement the client's requested configuration immediately to ensure client satisfaction and avoid delaying the project timeline, assuming the client understands the risks. Option B. Explain the security risks associated with disabling the feature, detailing the potential compliance violations and the impact on data integrity, and propose an alternative configuration that addresses the client's need for ease of access while maintaining robust security. Option C. Refuse to implement the requested configuration outright, stating that it violates security best practices and leaving the client to find another solution. Option D. Implement the requested configuration as instructed, but make a note in the project documentation that the client insisted on this change, hoping that any future security issues will be attributed to the client's decision. The correct answer is B. Explain the security risks associated with disabling the feature, detailing the potential compliance violations and the impact on data integrity, and propose an alternative configuration that addresses the client's need for ease of access while maintaining robust security. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between a client's explicit, albeit potentially misguided, request and the implementation engineer's ethical and professional responsibility to ensure a secure and compliant solution. The Avaya Scopia Registered Solution Implementation and Maintenance Exam Syllabus emphasizes the importance of adhering to best practices and security protocols, which are often underpinned by regulatory frameworks designed to protect data and ensure operational integrity. The engineer must navigate the pressure to satisfy the client's immediate desire while upholding the long-term security and reliability of the deployed system. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes security and compliance over a potentially ill-informed client request. By explaining the risks associated with the requested configuration and proposing a secure alternative that meets the underlying business need, the engineer demonstrates technical expertise, ethical integrity, and a commitment to the client's best interests. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology deployment, where security is not an afterthought but a foundational element. Adhering to the Avaya Scopia Registered Solution Implementation and Maintenance exams focus on robust and secure implementations. This approach ensures the solution is not only functional but also resilient against potential threats and compliant with relevant security standards. An incorrect approach that involves immediately implementing the client's request without further discussion or risk assessment fails to uphold professional standards. This could lead to a system vulnerable to unauthorized access, data breaches, or non-compliance with industry regulations, potentially exposing the client and the engineer's company to significant legal and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, such as refusing to implement the request without offering an alternative, demonstrates a lack of client engagement and problem-solving, potentially damaging the professional relationship and failing to address the client's underlying business objective. A third incorrect approach, which involves implementing the request and then passively hoping no issues arise, is negligent and abdicates responsibility for the security and integrity of the deployed solution. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the client's objective. When a request appears problematic, the next step is to clearly articulate the potential risks and consequences, referencing relevant security best practices and, if applicable, regulatory guidelines. Subsequently, The professional should propose and discuss alternative solutions that achieve the client's objective securely and compliantly. This collaborative approach ensures the client is informed and can make a decision based on a comprehensive understanding of the implications, while the professional maintains their ethical and technical integrity. Question 15. Regulatory review indicates that during an Avaya Scopia solution implementation, a client requests an immediate configuration change to bypass a standard security protocol for a specific, temporary use case. The client emphasizes the urgency and assures that the bypass will be reverted shortly. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the implementation engineer? Option A. Immediately implement the requested bypass to satisfy the client's urgent need, with a verbal commitment to revert the change later. Option B. Document the request, conduct a thorough risk assessment of the proposed bypass, explore secure alternative solutions, and seek formal approval for any deviation from standard security configurations before proceeding. Option C. Proceed with the bypass as requested, assuming the client's assurance of temporary use is sufficient to mitigate risks. Option D. Refuse the request outright, citing security concerns, without offering any alternative solutions or further explanation. The correct answer is B. Document the request, conduct a thorough risk assessment of the proposed bypass, explore secure alternative solutions, and seek formal approval for any deviation from standard security configurations before proceeding. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a client's immediate perceived need and the long-term security and compliance requirements of the Avaya Scopia solution. The pressure to quickly deploy a feature that bypasses established security protocols, even for a seemingly temporary or isolated use case, introduces significant risk. Careful judgment is required to balance client satisfaction with the imperative to maintain system integrity and adhere to regulatory mandates. The correct approach, which involves a thorough risk assessment and adherence to change management procedures, represents best professional practice because it prioritizes security and compliance. By documenting the request, evaluating the potential security vulnerabilities, and seeking formal approval for any deviation or workaround, the implementation engineer upholds the integrity of the Avaya Scopia solution and demonstrates due diligence. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology deployment, ensuring that security is not compromised for expediency. Furthermore, it reflects a commitment to the Avaya's recommended implementation and maintenance guidelines, which are designed to ensure secure and stable operation. An incorrect approach that involves immediately implementing the requested workaround without proper assessment or documentation is professionally unacceptable. This action would represent a failure to adhere to established security best practices and potentially violate the terms of service or support agreements for the Avaya Scopia solution. It introduces an unmanaged risk to the client's network and data, which could have severe consequences, including data breaches, service disruptions, and reputational damage. Such an action also bypasses the necessary change control processes, which are critical for maintaining audit trails and ensuring accountability. Another incorrect approach, which is to outright refuse the client's request without offering alternative solutions or explaining the security implications, is also professionally deficient. While it avoids immediate security risks, it fails to meet the client's needs and can damage the professional relationship. A best practice involves understanding the client's underlying requirement and exploring secure, compliant alternatives, even if they require more time or effort. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the client's need. Clearly articulate the client's objective and the reason for their request. 2. Assess security and compliance implications. Evaluate the potential risks associated with the requested change, considering the Avaya Scopia solution's security features and relevant compliance frameworks. 3. Explore secure alternatives. Investigate if the client's objective can be met through existing, secure features or by implementing a properly documented and approved configuration change. 4. Document and propose. If a workaround is the only option, thoroughly document the risks, the proposed solution, and the justification. Present this to the client and relevant stakeholders for formal approval. 5. Adhere to change management. Follow established change management processes for any approved modifications. 6. Communicate clearly. Maintain open and transparent communication with the client throughout the process. Question 16. Operational review demonstrates a consistent degradation in Avaya Scopia conferencing quality, characterized by intermittent audio dropouts and video freezing during peak usage hours. The implementation team is under pressure to restore optimal performance immediately. Which of the following actions represents the most professional and compliant approach to resolving this issue? Option A. Implement a temporary workaround that masks the symptoms, such as reducing video resolution or limiting concurrent users, while deferring a full investigation until a less critical period. Option B. Immediately deploy the latest available system patch, as it is often designed to address general performance issues and is likely to resolve the observed degradation. Option C. Prioritize addressing the most frequent user complaints by making ad hoc configuration adjustments based on anecdotal feedback, without a systematic analysis of system-wide data. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive diagnostic process, meticulously reviewing system logs, performance metrics, and network traffic patterns to identify the root cause before proposing and implementing a solution. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive diagnostic process, meticulously reviewing system logs, performance metrics, and network traffic patterns to identify the root cause before proposing and implementing a solution. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in maintaining complex AV solutions like Avaya Scopia. Performance degradation, especially in critical communication systems, can have significant business impacts, including lost productivity, missed opportunities, and reputational damage. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the degradation efficiently and effectively, while adhering to established operational procedures and potentially service-level agreements, SLAs, that may have regulatory implications depending on the industry and jurisdiction. The pressure to restore full functionality quickly can lead to rushed decisions, which, if not guided by a structured process, can introduce further risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a systematic, data-driven investigation. By initiating a comprehensive diagnostic process that includes reviewing system logs, performance metrics, and network traffic, the implementation team can pinpoint the exact source of the degradation. This aligns with best professional practices for IT service management, often codified in industry standards and regulatory frameworks that mandate due diligence and proper incident management. For instance, in regulated industries, failure to adequately investigate and resolve performance issues could be seen as a breach of duty of care or noncompliance with operational resilience requirements. This methodical approach ensures that solutions are targeted, effective, and do not introduce unintended consequences, thereby maintaining system integrity and user trust. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a broad, untested patch without a clear understanding of its impact is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses the essential diagnostic steps, risking further system instability or introducing new vulnerabilities. This approach is akin to practicing medicine without a diagnosis, potentially exacerbating the problem. From a compliance perspective, such a reactive and unverified action could violate IT governance principles that require change management and risk assessment. It also fails to meet the professional obligation to provide competent and reliable service. Applying a workaround that only partially addresses the symptoms without identifying the underlying cause is another professionally unacceptable approach. While it might offer temporary relief, it leaves the system vulnerable to recurring issues and potential escalation. This can lead to a breach of SLAs if performance remains below acceptable thresholds. And in regulated environments, it could be interpreted as a failure to maintain adequate operational controls. It demonstrates a lack of thoroughness and a disregard for long-term system health. Focusing solely on user complaints without correlating them with objective system data is insufficient. While user feedback is valuable, it needs to be substantiated by technical evidence. Relying only on anecdotal reports can lead to misdiagnosis and wasted resources on addressing perceived rather than actual problems. This can also lead to a failure to meet regulatory requirements for incident reporting and resolution, which often mandate objective evidence and root cause analysis. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should follow a structured incident management and problem-solving framework. This typically involves 1. Incident identification and logging. Clearly define the problem and its impact. 2. Diagnosis and root cause analysis. Systematically gather data, logs, metrics, traffic to identify the underlying cause. 3. Solution development and testing. Design and test potential solutions in a controlled environment. 4. Implementation and verification. Deploy the solution and confirm its effectiveness. 5. Closure and documentation. Record the incident, resolution, and lessons learned. This process ensures that actions are justified, effective, and compliant with professional standards and any applicable regulatory mandates for system maintenance and operational integrity. Question 17. Benchmark analysis indicates that the current Avaya Scopia solution deployment exhibits inefficiencies in user onboarding and device provisioning, leading to increased support tickets and delayed access for new users. Considering the need for process optimization, which of the following strategies best aligns with professional best practices for implementing improvements in a regulated environment? Option A. Introduce a new, complex provisioning tool recommended by a single influential department, bypassing standard change control procedures and documentation requirements to expedite the process. Option B. Implement a pilot program for a new automated onboarding and provisioning workflow with a representative group of users, meticulously documenting all steps and outcomes, and then proceed with a phased rollout based on pilot success and feedback, ensuring all changes are logged and validated against existing security and operational policies. Option C. Rely on informal feedback from the IT support team to make ad hoc adjustments to the existing provisioning scripts and user guides, prioritizing speed over formal validation or documentation. Option D. Immediately deploy a newly developed, feature-rich self-service portal for all users, based on a vendor demonstration, without extensive internal testing or a phased rollout, to rapidly address the perceived inefficiencies. The correct answer is B. Implement a pilot program for a new automated onboarding and provisioning workflow with a representative group of users, meticulously documenting all steps and outcomes, and then proceed with a phased rollout based on pilot success and feedback, ensuring all changes are logged and validated against existing security and operational policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in maintaining complex Avaya Scopia solutions, balancing the need for continuous improvement and feature adoption with the inherent risks of system instability and potential compliance breaches. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that enhance efficiency and user experience without compromising the security, reliability, or regulatory adherence of the communication infrastructure. Careful judgment is required to select optimizations that are not only technically sound, but also align with the organization's risk appetite and any applicable regulatory mandates. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, evidence-based methodology for process optimization. By leveraging benchmark analysis, the team can identify specific areas for improvement that have a demonstrable impact. The subsequent steps of pilot testing, phased rollout, and comprehensive documentation ensure that changes are validated, risks are mitigated, and knowledge transfer is effective. This systematic approach minimizes disruption, reduces the likelihood of unforeseen issues, and supports ongoing compliance by ensuring that all implemented changes are auditable and maintain the integrity of the system's security and operational parameters. This aligns with the principles of responsible system management and proactive risk mitigation, which are implicitly expected in maintaining critical communication systems. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment of new features without thorough testing or risk assessment would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to system instability, service disruptions, and potentially expose the organization to security vulnerabilities. Such an approach would fail to uphold the duty of care to ensure the reliable operation of the communication system and could violate implicit or explicit service level agreements. Furthermore, if the organization is subject to specific data handling or communication regulations, a hasty implementation could inadvertently lead to noncompliance, such as data leakage or unauthorized access, resulting in significant regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or the preferences of a single influential stakeholder without objective validation or a structured rollout is also professionally unsound. This bypasses critical validation steps, increasing the risk of introducing unintended consequences. It demonstrates a lack of rigorous process and can lead to suboptimal outcomes wasted resources, and a failure to achieve the desired process improvements. This approach neglects the importance of data-driven decision-making and robust change management, which are fundamental to maintaining complex IT systems. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's objectives, a thorough assessment of current processes, and a comprehensive evaluation of potential solutions. This includes identifying key performance indicators, understanding the regulatory landscape, and assessing the risk profile of any proposed changes. A structured approach, incorporating pilot programs, phased deployments, and continuous monitoring, is essential. Professionals must prioritize solutions that offer a clear return on investment, minimize disruption, and demonstrably enhance system performance and security while ensuring compliance. Question 18. Implementation of a critical fix for an Avaya Scopia solution experiencing a widespread service outage requires a rapid response. The standard change management process involves a multi-day approval cycle. Given the immediate impact on business operations, what is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Halt all troubleshooting and wait for the standard change management approval to be completed before any corrective actions are taken. Option B. Immediately implement the fix after a brief internal technical review and then submit the change request for retrospective approval and documentation. Option C. Implement the fix without any documentation or review, prioritizing speed of restoration above all else. Option D. Escalate the outage to senior management and request an emergency change approval to expedite the standard change management process. The correct answer is B. Immediately implement the fix after a brief internal technical review and then submit the change request for retrospective approval and documentation. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in Avaya Scopia solution maintenance, balancing the need for rapid issue resolution with the imperative of adhering to established change management processes. In a regulated environment, uncontrolled or undocumented changes can lead to compliance violations, security vulnerabilities, and audit failures. The professional challenge lies in navigating the urgency of a critical system outage while ensuring that any corrective actions are properly assessed, authorized, and documented. The correct approach prioritizes a structured incident response that includes immediate containment and troubleshooting, followed by a controlled implementation of a fix with thorough documentation and post-implementation review. This aligns with best practices for IT service management and regulatory compliance, as it ensures accountability, traceability, and minimizes the risk of introducing further issues. Specifically, it upholds principles of good governance and risk management, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks governing IT operations, even if not explicitly detailed in the exam syllabus itself. The focus is on maintaining system integrity and operational continuity through a disciplined process. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control and documentation introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. This could include violating internal policies designed to ensure system stability and security, potentially leading to data breaches or service disruptions that have financial or reputational consequences. From a compliance perspective, failing to document changes can be seen as a failure to maintain an accurate audit trail, which is a cornerstone of many regulatory requirements related to IT systems. It also demonstrates a lack of professional diligence, as it prioritizes expediency over established, risk-mitigating procedures. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing a fix without proper testing, even if documented, carries a high risk of exacerbating the problem or introducing new ones. This demonstrates a failure to apply due diligence and a disregard for the potential impact on the business and its users. Ethically, it is a failure to act in the best interest of the organization by not ensuring the reliability and security of the critical communication infrastructure. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the incident severity, the potential impact of the outage, and the established incident and change management procedures. When faced with a critical outage, the immediate priority is to restore service. However, this must be balanced with the need to follow a controlled process. This involves assessing the risk of immediate action versus the risk of delay, seeking appropriate authorization for any deviations from standard procedures, and ensuring that all actions, even those taken under pressure, are documented retrospectively if immediate documentation is not feasible. The goal is to achieve a swift resolution while maintaining compliance and minimizing long-term risk. Question 19. The control framework reveals a need to optimize the Avaya Scopia registered solutions performance and feature set, considering the potential for disruption and the importance of maintaining a secure and compliant environment. Which of the following strategies best represents a professional approach to process optimization for this solution? Option A. Defer all significant system updates and feature enhancements indefinitely until a major infrastructure overhaul is planned to minimize immediate implementation effort. Option B. Implement all vendor-recommended updates and new feature releases immediately upon their availability to ensure the solution remains current and leverages the latest advancements. Option C. Conduct a phased rollout of proposed optimizations, starting with a pilot group, after thorough testing in a staging environment and developing a comprehensive rollback plan. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of user-requested minor feature enhancements over critical security patches and performance-related updates to maximize immediate user satisfaction. Correct answer is B. Implement all vendor-recommended updates and new feature releases immediately upon their availability to ensure the solution remains current and leverages the latest advancements. Explanation. The control framework reveals a critical juncture in optimizing the Avaya Scopia registered solutions performance and user experience. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for system stability and security with the long-term benefits of adopting new features and functionalities that could enhance collaboration and productivity. A hasty implementation of updates without thorough testing or user impact assessment can lead to unforeseen disruptions, security vulnerabilities, and user dissatisfaction, potentially violating service-level agreements and data protection guidelines. Conversely, delaying necessary updates indefinitely can expose the organization to security risks and prevent the realization of technological advancements. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, risk-based methodology for process optimization. This involves a comprehensive evaluation of proposed changes, including pilot testing, phased rollouts, and robust rollback plans. By prioritizing updates based on their potential impact, security implications, and alignment with business objectives, organizations can ensure that optimization efforts enhance, rather than degrade, the Scopia solution's effectiveness. This aligns with best practices in IT service management, focusing on continuous improvement while maintaining service integrity and compliance with relevant data privacy regulations. An incorrect approach would be to implement updates solely based on vendor recommendations without internal validation. This bypasses critical risk assessment and can lead to system instability or security breaches, potentially violating data protection laws by exposing sensitive information. Another incorrect approach is to defer all updates due to perceived complexity or cost, which can result in the system becoming outdated, insecure, and non-compliant with evolving industry standards and regulatory requirements for data security and privacy. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize user requests for minor feature enhancements over critical security patches or performance optimizations, creating a lopsided improvement strategy that neglects foundational stability and security. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that integrates risk management, change control, and stakeholder communication. This involves establishing clear criteria for evaluating proposed optimizations, conducting thorough impact analyses, and obtaining necessary approvals before implementation. Regular reviews of system performance, security posture, and user feedback are essential to inform ongoing optimization efforts and ensure alignment with organizational goals and regulatory obligations. Question 20. The audit findings indicate a significant increase in call setup times for Avaya Scopia registered video conferencing sessions. To address this, which of the following approaches would be most effective in optimizing the process and resolving the performance issue? Option A. Prioritize addressing user complaints about call quality by focusing on individual user troubleshooting, as this is the most direct way to improve the perceived performance. Option B. Analyze Avaya Scopia registered call flow logs, network latency metrics between endpoints and the Scopia infrastructure, and endpoint device configurations to pinpoint the source of the delay. Option C. Initiate a rollback of all recent configuration changes made to the Avaya Scopia registered environment, as these are the most likely culprits for performance degradation. Option D. Immediately provision additional server resources for the Avaya Scopia registered infrastructure to handle increased load, assuming resource contention is the primary cause. The correct answer is B. Analyze Avaya Scopia registered call flow logs, network latency metrics between endpoints and the Scopia infrastructure, and endpoint device configurations to pinpoint the source of the delay. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential bottleneck in the Avaya Scopia registered solutions call setup process, impacting user experience and potentially service-level agreements. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of process optimization within the specific technical and operational context of the Scopia solution, without resorting to simplistic or unverified solutions. The pressure to quickly resolve performance issues must be balanced against the need for thorough analysis and adherence to best practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically identifies the root cause of the call setup delay through data-driven analysis and targeted troubleshooting. This aligns with the principles of efficient system management and continuous improvement, which are implicitly expected in maintaining complex communication platforms like Avaya Scopia. By focusing on analyzing call flow logs, network latency, and endpoint configurations, the solution directly addresses the identified performance issue in a structured and verifiable manner. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of introducing new problems and ensures that any implemented changes are effective and sustainable, thereby upholding service quality and user satisfaction. An incorrect approach that involves immediately increasing server resources without a clear understanding of the bottleneck is professionally unacceptable. This is because it represents a shotgun approach to problem solving, which is inefficient and costly. It fails to address the underlying cause, potentially masking the real issue and leading to recurring problems. From a regulatory or ethical standpoint, this approach could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence and professional competence, as it deviates from a systematic troubleshooting methodology. It also risks violating internal operational guidelines or service-level agreements if the problem persists or worsens due to misdiagnosis. Another incorrect approach, such as rolling back recent configuration changes without a clear correlation to the performance degradation, is also professionally unsound. While rollback can be a valid troubleshooting step, doing so without evidence linking the changes to the issue is speculative. This can disrupt ongoing operations and undo potentially beneficial updates. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and could lead to unnecessary service interruptions. Finally, an approach that relies solely on user anecdotal feedback without technical validation is insufficient. While user feedback is valuable, it often lacks the precision needed for technical diagnosis. Relying on it exclusively can lead to misinterpretations and wasted effort on non-existent or misidentified technical problems, failing to meet the professional obligation to provide accurate and effective technical solutions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem and its impact. Second, gather all relevant data, logs, performance metrics, user reports. Third, analyze the data to identify potential root causes. Fourth, formulate hypotheses and test them systematically. Fifth, implement solutions based on validated findings. And finally, monitor the results and iterate as needed. This process ensures that solutions are data-driven, efficient, and aligned with professional standards and any applicable service-level agreements.